Fractions, decimals, and percents can all be used to represent the same number. They are all parts of a whole, and we're going to talk about how each one is related to the other. Let's start with fractions. Fractions can be represented using models. If I were to look at this picture here on the left, my question says, what does one section of each grid represent? So if I were to take one section of this grid and color it blue, okay, I have one section out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 total parts. So one section of this grid is 1/10 of my whole shape. Now, if I'm going to do the same thing over here, I need to figure out how many boxes I have in this grid. Well, this is what we call a 10 by 10 grid, which means there are 10 boxes going across and 10 boxes going down the side. A 10 by 10 grid has 100 squares. That's important for us to know because when it comes to figuring out what each section represents, I need to know how many total sections I have. So one section of my grid looks like this. Again, that's 1 out of 100 total pieces. So one section of this grid is 1 out of 100 pieces. And over here we have 1/10. So now we want to look at which fraction of each grid is shaded. Let's look at the one here on the left. Okay, if I'm going to talk about what fraction is shaded, I need to figure out, again, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shaded pieces out of 7, 8, 9, 10 total pieces. So that means 7/10 of this grid right here is shaded. Let's look at the one on the right. Again, I need to figure out how many parts are shaded. So if I look at this, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 whole columns are shaded. And remember, this is a 10 by 10 grid, so this is really 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. I have 70 blocks that are shaded out of 100 total blocks. So in this grid over on this side, we would say 70 hundredths are shaded. Now these two amounts are actually the same. It's just that this one is bigger pieces than this one is. These little squares are broken up much smaller than this. That's why we have 70 out of 100, whereas this one's only 7 out of 10. Now let's think a little bit about our place value. If I wanted to turn these fractions into decimals, I need to think about my decimal place value. In decimal place value, you always have your whole numbers that come first. We call those the ones. You'd also have the tens, hundreds, thousands. After your decimal point, we have the tenths spot and then the hundredths spot. The way you put a number from a fraction form into a decimal form is you're going to look at your numerator first. We have 7. 7/10. Okay, it's important for us to use this numerator, 7, and put it in the place value spot that represents our denominator, tenths. So this number would be written 7/10. Now we don't have any ones, no whole numbers, and we don't have any hundredths. So since there are no hundredths, we just ignore that part of our number. So we have 7/10. Now, if we look at this number over here, 70 hundredths, we're going to change things up a little bit. Again, we're going to look at the top number first, our numerator, 70. But this time we want it to stop or end in the hundredths place. So I take that number 70 and I put this last digit in my last place value spot, which is hundredths. So 70 hundredths. And again, I don't have any holes, so we put a 0 in the 1 spot. So 70 hundredths looks like this, 70 hundredths, because we have the number 70 with the last digit in the hundredths place. Now 7/10 looks like this because our number is 7 and it ends in my tenths place. So we've taken fractions and we've changed them into decimals. Now we want to look at percents. A percent, the word percent means per hundred. It means how many out of 100. So 40% really means 40 out of 100. 40 hundredths. Well, we know how to change this into a decimal. We take our top number 40 and we're going to write it so that our last digit ends in our hundredth spot. So this is 40 hundredths. Okay, so that's 40 hundredths. Now if I wanted to shade this in, I need 40 out of 100 pieces. So it would look like that. Again, 10, 20, 30, 40. 40 out of 100.